Well, good morning there. Welcome to another episode of the Typewriter video series. This is actually episode 64, if my count is correct, and the number 64 has the significance to me that when I was a young man I served in the U.S. Navy on a ship whose hull number was 64. Let's see if you guys can figure out what ship that was. Anyways, we're back in Albuquerque from our little vacation to Arizona, where we spent a few days at a wonderful bed and breakfast in Jerome, Arizona, which is in the mountains west of Cottonwood in north central Arizona. So had a great time, and as you might have noticed from my previous video, and if you read my blog lately, I did bring the little Brother Charger 11 typewriter with me, and I have a few observations to make, a few more to make about bringing the typewriter with me, using it, and something specific that I did with it while I was there. So stay tuned. First of all, something specific about the typewriter itself. Ever since I've had this, which has been a little over a month now, it's been difficult to get the left side of the case attached to the rear left part of the typewriter. You have to kind of fiddle with it. And one morning when I was at the bed and breakfast and wished to carry the typewriter out to the garden to use, I didn't get it attached correctly, and one of the plastic clips inside that holds the lid to the body broke. And I didn't notice this, but the other one had already been broken before I bought it. So what it meant is now the lid doesn't stay secured at all onto the typewriter. And so when we were in Jerome going through the little tourist shops, I found a $5 belt that I acquired, and now I use it for securing the lid. Had to add a little hole to it to get it to fit right, but let me show you that broken clip here. So with the belt off, just remove it, and so it's these two little plastic pieces are broken off. And all it is the plastic bends, is designed just to bend in order to release the typewriter. So it's kind of not a very strong design to begin with, right? But maybe I can get some pieces of plastic and put some screws through here and attach them and maybe make it work, or just use the strap. I think that's what I might end up doing. But what I wanted to share with you were several things, and I guess this is a continuation of the idea of using typewriters on the road, on trips. But when we were driving back from Arizona to New Mexico yesterday afternoon, somewhere between Flagstaff and the New Mexico border to the east, my wife took over the driving duties after we gassed up, and I sat in the passenger side of the car with the this typewriter on my lap, and I started writing, composing a blog article as we were driving, and I found it to be a very interesting writing experience for several reasons. So the neighbors are probably thinking, what's he doing in the driveway in the car? Well, anyway, I'm simulating what it was like when we were driving back home yesterday on our vacation from Arizona, and I was sitting here in the passenger seat, of course with my seat belt safely attached, and typing here with the Brother typewriter on my lap, you know. Now, you know, it does make a little bit of a noise, but we had some music playing. I believe it was the jazz station on Sirius XM. Anyways, it was good. What I liked about it, as far as a writing experience, is you're kind of trapped in the car for hours at a time, and it's otherwise kind of wasted time. And you can treat it as wasted time and not do anything productive, or you can think, okay, this is my office. I have a writing machine here on my lap. I have a long length of uninterrupted time and available to myself, and I could actually make it productive. And so you can sit here, type a few words or sentences, you can pause, look out the window, watch the landscape go by, and then go back and work at it again. There's no pressure. You have all the time you need. It's a really interesting writing experience, writing in the car. And it works best, I think, with these really small portable typewriters, just because they're a little bit lighter and easier to sit on your lap and whatnot, especially ones that have the bottom of the typewriter sealed up. So yeah, I thought it was a very interesting experience, definitely a good way to while away the hours when you're on a road trip. And even better is if you're in the back seat. If you have a fairly roomy back seat like this Subaru Forester, you know, and if you kind of break the rules of the seatbelt law a little bit and get your legs stretched out on that back seat like a comfortable couch and put your typewriter on your lap, now I'm really relaxing. Oh yeah, I'll probably put the seatbelt on just to, you know, just to say I'm safe. But now I'm back here and I got my own little space. And we can drive cross country and I can do some writing. How cool is that? So one more thing happened during our vacation relating to the use of typewriters that I wanted to share with you guys. And you know, oftentimes when I'm using typewriters, and maybe you have the same experience, it's a private avocation. It's a private hobby. We love to collect them for ourselves. We like to tinker with them. We like to write with them. We mainly write for ourselves, I'm guessing. Maybe a few of you guys out there actually have success at writing material to be published. But especially in regards to my vacation usage of typewriters in the past, it's always been very private. I mean, when I went out to Oceanside, California, I would, you know, I'd be carry out my lawn chair, my beach chair to the beach, and I would have my typewriter in one hand, usually a beach towel covering it. I was kind of self-conscious about it. I didn't want to be seen as, oh, here's the guy with a typewriter coming again, even though I would be sitting on the beach chair with a typewriter. In other words, I wasn't really going out of my way to brag about the idea that I was typing on the beach. Just something I wanted to do for private. But when we had arrived at our bed and breakfast and settled in at the surgeon's house, and once we started to share a little bit with our hostess of who we are and what is it that motivates us, and once she obviously took note of the fact that I had a typewriter because I started using it in one of the rooms, the public rooms of the house, it became obvious that I had a typewriter. And then, of course, there was a discussion that ensued about why do you use typewriters and what do you enjoy about them, and et cetera, et cetera. So that whole conversation happened. One morning while she was preparing our breakfast, and I was in the kitchen drinking coffee, and we were just talking, and she was talking about her background, what led her to get to the place where she is the owner and proprietor of a bed and breakfast. She told us a little bit about her background, and then I let her, you know, continue doing her preparations for breakfast, and I left her alone. I went out to the atrium area, which is a beautiful setting with glass, the morning sun coming in, and all these green plants everywhere, and books and artwork. And I sat down with a typewriter and I typed up a piece, very stream of consciousness-like. It wasn't real premeditated, but I'll share with you just a bit of it. I typed this, it's about a 2/3 of a page, single-spaced, typed on the Brother Charger 11 typewriter, and I left the piece sitting on a side table in her living room. And she found it later that day and was very touched by it, which I was heartened to see. But I'll just read this last paragraph. Here, as she holds court in her kitchen, we find a gentle touch here and an insightful word spoken there, a sparkle in her eye and wholeness for our being in the gratitude of the meal served before us. We lounge amidst a life's gathering of living, leafy beings while books and paintings feed and nourish our souls. Outside, the roar of Harleys and pickups headed to nowhere is but a gentle reminder that, if but for a night or two, we are home. That piece was written about the care and love that she takes in her home
the grounds surrounding it and the meals that she prepares for her guests. And, you know, we've been to a lot of bed and breakfasts around this part of the country in the last couple decades, and this is probably our best experience. So it's an interesting experience when you find yourself suddenly using a typewriter for sharing something so personal as this kind of a prose piece intended personally for someone who has touched you in some way, and you want to reciprocate and let them know how their service has benefited you. It wouldn't have meant the same. It would have been different. I don't even know if I would have done it if it was done by hand. I mean, it seems almost inappropriate to write that by hand and give it to her in the context of the setting. But the fact that it was mechanically printed, mechanically typed, there's a formality to it that kind of, it's like a social formality of a typewritten piece that kind of permits it to be given.
Now, when I say that it couldn't have been done the same way by hand, I don't mean to imply a slight against handwritten prose or poetry. I know I've made this statement several times before in this series, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti-handwriting at all. I enjoy fountain pens. I have a collection of them. I enjoy fountain pen inks, even though I have terrible handwriting. But I enjoy handwriting. There's a place for it. But let me share with you an analogy. When we were in Jerome, we visited some artist studios that were located in the old high school building on the edge of town. And one of the studios we visited was the Anderson Mandette Art Studios. We went into this studio because we were led there by the owner's dog, who met us at the door and led us inside the building and down the long hallway of this, what was a former high school. You could smell linseed oil, and that led to his open studio. And this is Robin John Anderson. He is an artist who does etching and printmaking. And he offered to make us a print right on the spot from one of his etched plates, and he gave me the option of choosing which image it was, and this is the image that I chose to be printed. And the thing about it is that I selected the plate, and he very succinctly and efficiently proceeded to explain every step of the process as he cleaned the plate, inked the plate, carded the ink, used various kinds of fabrics and cloths and textured materials to rub the ink into the finely etched lines and to wipe off the excess just the right amount, and then to prepare the paper by spraying it wet on both sides, lay it into the press with the blankets over it, and he proceeded to run it through the press. And then he has a dry mount table. It's the kind of a electrically heated dry mount press for mounting fiber-based photographs onto mat boards. He was able to dry this very quickly so we could take it with us that day. But you know, this is wonderful art, and it's done as a combination of hand-wrought art and then the technical art of printmaking. So the parallel here to the typing versus handwriting experience is I was composing this prose, which I could have done with any kind of written medium, but I composed it, and then it's the art of hand typing, manual typing. I don't know if it's fair or accurate to say that there's some kind of a loose parallel between manual typing and the printmaking crafts, where it's a combination of mechanical craft and art. But I think there might be a parallel there. So this is what I mean when I say that it couldn't have been done the same way if I hadn't have had a manual typewriter there. Because the typewriter part of it is almost like a performance. It's a technical performance because, you know,
the first time somebody sits down in front of a manual typewriter, they're not going to be able to make those imprints as even and as neat as one of us who've been experienced with typewriters for a while. So there is a certain amount of technique and technology to the manual typing thing that I think is appropriate here. So I thought that this was I don't know if I would call it a breakthrough moment, but it was sort of a breakthrough moment of using typewriters ostensibly for the purpose of my own pleasure and a hobby while on vacation, but suddenly finding myself having done something with them that was a blessing to someone else, writing a piece that I gave to someone else. You know, I've never looked upon myself as being a street poet. You know, there's a lot of people that are writing poetry on the streets with typewriters, that kind of thing. I've never thought of myself as that, but I thought it was an interesting opportunity that the typewriter enabled this to happen. As I said before, even if I had a nice fountain pen with me actually, but even if I had good handwriting, which I don't, you would almost have to do this in a calligrapher's hand in order to make it as effective. So having a mechanical portable printing device like a typewriter made it worthwhile, made this possible, I thought. So that's an interesting idea, interesting observation. Maybe you can consider for yourself ways in which the typewriter can become more than just a personal hobby to you, but a way that you can bring writings out of your soul and share them with other people as they were intended as writing implements. Well, this is Joe Van Cleve, and you have yourselves a great day.